So, they said this would be a whole lot better than a literal race for fastest lap in Battersea Park. Can't fault them on that one. It's certainly better than that. How much better? Debatable. We'll get to that on Motorsport 101. Oh, Motorsport 101's looking a bit different this week. I'm not your friendly neighborhood Andre Harrison. It's me, Ryan Eric King. Dre could not be here this week, though we have a guest to replace him. First our usual co-host, RJ O'Connell. RJ, how are you enjoying the Olympic Games so far?
I've been getting a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep per day. That's my Olympic experience. Also, people are being gross about Simone Biles, as always, but I kind of fucking expected that because we can never expect better out of sporting culture and mass.
And Cam Buckley, you don't seem too excited right now.
As a basketball fan, Team USA stinks.
Hey, they beat the great nation of Iran 122-60.
Kevin Durant had 10 points.
And our guest for this episode, Stuart from CHAINBEAR.
Hello, thanks for having me on. Although I don't think I could replace Dre, as you put it. That's a hefty weight on my shoulder.
You're a substitute while he is on the mend.
Yeah, I'll just sit here and try not to ruin the whole thing.
No, Stuart, you know what this means? You get to be the Jack Grealish of the show. Everybody is so excited to see the substitute come on, thinking, wow, Stuart's going to come in and score 5 goals, put us up to the finals, baby. That's like always the expectation. Like, watching Euro 2020 made me realize that, like, man, people are really huge on this Jack Grealish dude.
Having I only watched the final, and that's the only thing I was getting from Twitter while watching it was, where's Grealish?
Okay, but on this edition of Motorsport 101, we'll be only covering one race, and one race only. Well, technically 2 races.
One round, 2 races.
2 races of the penultimate round of the FIA ABB Formula E World Championship, the London E-Prix. And for those of you who are new here, you could subscribe to the show, leave a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at motorsport_101. And you can also get all the episodes of the show on motorsport101.com. And if you particularly like us that well, you could subscribe to us on Patreon, where you can get early access to the show and listen live. Listen live via an unlisted YouTube link to a live stream of the show. On that note, it is time to head to London for Formula E. London is back on the Formula E schedule. This time we're not at Battersea Park. We're at an even less likely but more interesting venue, the XL Center. The first round of this doubleheader featured a dominant performance from Jake Dennis, who fended off Mahindra's Alex Lynn to take the race victory. Lynn ended up finishing 3rd in the first race, with Nick De Vries finishing 2nd in the Mercedes. Though Nick De Vries was not happy with his experience having to qualify in the first group, and pretty much made his life a bit more difficult than it needed to be. He was quoted as saying, it says all in the publicity banners, the world's most unpredictable sport. Well, we're in it. We're all hating and loving it all the time. Hopefully we get the timing a little bit right for the end of the season. So, kind of stepping back from the race a bit. New venue. It looks great. one of us here was there in person. Stuart, how do you feel about the race venue?
I feel like I had a whole different experience. I actually have to say, ignoring the race for the moment, which was what they actually pulled off was quite extraordinary. Because I went down there I only live. I don't know why I'm pointing. I live here, but the venue is 25-minute walk down the road. And I went down there a few weeks ago to check it out and realised what they were trying to do. And to have actually pulled it off is quite extraordinary, especially when you saw them coming out of that ramp. So the first thing I didn't realise was the inside bit was a story up. Yeah. So I just assumed it was going to be on the ground, but no, a story up. They kind of go out, they exit it via a teeny little ramp, which I thought they were never getting round. The venue, before they did anything to it, just seemed completely inappropriate. But actually being down there and seeing what they've done, it was really quite impressive. And then seeing it on TV and seeing how further they'd hidden all the calamity behind the scenes, as they do, as we've sometimes seen when we've gone to E-Prix. I thought logistically very impressive. In terms of producing a race, I think we all had a good time. I think there's definitely a few kinks to iron out, particularly that double hairpin, which I think when we looked at it, we all knew it was going to cause trouble just from the map. But genuinely, I was really impressed with what they pulled off. I think it was ambitious and silly, very formulary, but they got 2 races out of it. Just sort of. Yeah,
that seems to be the Formula E motto, where it's like, we'll race in the unexpected, and the races will be just as unexpected. And to me, the XL Center venue is, I would say, something that should be celebrated in terms of being able to race where you would never expect it to be.
Yeah, you can't race most shit indoors, because that's the thing about petrol engines. They kick out emissions, and emissions tend to get trapped indoors as compared to outdoors. I don't know how monster truck shows happen in a dome. They happen in dome stadiums all the time.
Noted low-emission vehicles, monster trucks.
That's a real feat of engineering. Second, of course, to these Formula E cars. I think the idea is fine. I mean, I thought it was just wild that we were finishing off whole-ass concerts 5 minutes before lights out to start the race.
Now, there's one thing I need to ask you specifically, Stuart, because it's either we missed it on the broadcast or it just didn't happen at all. Because normally before an international motorsport event, you're supposed to play the host nation's national anthem. Did that happen in London or not?
Are you saying that Raya song is not the British national anthem? Because in our hearts.
Oh my god.
I certainly didn't hear it. I wasn't in the indoor arena part of it, which, when everything began, it was kind of locked off to the wealthier participants, the media and the normal punters were either in the media centre or kind of locked out down by turn 16. So, no, I certainly didn't see it take place. You've got to assume they stuck it on a Walkman somewhere.
Just the obligatory, just quiet whisper, God save our great.
I mean, it's a terrible national anthem, both in lyric and tune. It's just awful. So why not have dancers?
Yeah, why not? Again, to me, it's a very interesting, unique circuit. I'll give them this leeway for the first time that they, did the race, but if they make no adjustments for next year, big question marks need to be drawn. But kind of circling back quickly to Nick DeVries' comments about qualifying and group qualifying, and Formula E themselves have started, thinking about alternatives to group qualifying. mainly because, you know, we're in a period where we're really late in Gen 2, and we're kind of getting this convergence where all the cars, in terms of performance, are very close. So, the faster cars, even if they do end up at the top of the points table and end up going first in Group 1, they're not that much faster than all the other cars, so it is a much bigger penalty than it would be in prior seasons where it was possible to win pole from Group 1. Now it's just not anymore. Any idea about what the series could do to change this? Because I know one particular person on the show who's not happy about group qualifying, one Cam Buckley. Cam, what do you think Formula E should do about group qualifying?
Well, I think we should have a Q1, Q2, and Q3 followed by a sprint qualifying session.
Okay, Ross Braun. Okay.
Honestly, I think just traditional, normal, not sprint F1 qualifying would probably be a better solution. I wouldn't say it's the perfect solution, but the problem with group qualifying right now is that it sets up a problem where 9 times out of 10, the fastest driver in the fastest car doesn't have any chance for pole. Not just a low chance, they don't have any chance to qualify well. And as you said, the cars, for the most part, other than the Neos, are close enough that you can't just cut through the field like you used to be able to in a fast car. And so, as Nick DeVries put it, they have to time it right, because if they're in too good a championship position going into the final race at Tempelhof, they're going to be in a position where they're going to get dropped down the field due to the nature of the qualifying.
Yeah. Anyone else with a different perspective on what Formula E could do?
It's hard for me because, like, you're right in the sense that, you know, a while ago this was awesome because, like, you know, it didn't always ensure, like, the fastest car and the fastest driver wins pole all the time. Like, sometimes I like a little bit of jumbling up the order, even if it is a little artificial. But I do think the way it is now, it does need a bit of a rethink. The trouble is with just going with, like, a single timed qualifying format is that these cars really only have juice for one attack lap. So then really your only other alternative is just straight up single lap qualifying.
That's up to the organizing body. They could set them up to do more than one attack lap.
Yeah, because
it'd just be whether they're willing to.
Like, the practice sessions show that they could do it. It's just that the format kind of dictates that, hey, each group session is so short, so why even try to push laps? It's a scenario where you get one chance at pole. If you don't get it right, you're out. And due to, you know, track evolution, the track gets faster as the session goes on, and
that's the key issue here. Is the track evolution is so powerful in FE because these are city streets. They're not bespoke racing circuits. You get strong track evolution at a permanent circuit where it rubbers in. This just cleaning off the dust off the racing line is worth the better part of a second a lap at some tracks.
I think it's a really tricky thing because it's trying to. You understand what they're doing because they're trying to solve that problem of trying to fairly let people out as the track evolves. But you're also, if you just had a free for all, you'd have a situation where everyone was trying to go out in the last minute in tracks that aren't very long, and having Formula E does that anyway. Even when they're going out 6 at a time, they all trip over each other and try to sort of solve both of those problems in a fair way is tricky, and you're not going to get away from that.
Yeah,
how the track evolves as it goes on, unless you kind of literally randomize it with slots with draws, which they would hate, and they did hate.
Yeah, because they tried that before.
Yes,
it would be even more random. It just wouldn't punish you based on championship position, in theory.
Yeah, because it ended up being the groups were drawn at random. So the groups were still in championship order, but when you went out was randomized. So you could have the second group in championship order end up going out last, which the leaders hated even more. And it's hard to find a solution where, one, everyone's not out in track at once, and you still have to fit the session within a certain time window. You have to fit it within an hour because you have to do the entire event in one day.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think one potential solution is not change the qualifying format itself, but run final practice directly before it, just to get the track clean, to make it as fair as possible to all four groups.
Yeah, that might be a solution. But, because one idea that formally proposed was basically even smaller groups, where it would be essentially a knockout tournament style format where everyone is paired up, and if you're faster than the driver you're paired with, you advance.
Ooh.
Which
maybe
could be a potential solution for the future. We'll see if formally continue about thinking about that proposal, but again, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
To everyone at home and probably at the track, biggest story of the weekend was race 2. And
buddy, race 2.
RJ will tell us all about it.
Oh, if you thought race 1 was wild. Race 2, oh boy. Let's just say that when the great YouTube content creator, Summoning Salt, embarked on the journey of speed runs and Mario Kart Ultra shortcut videos, I don't think he would have ever imagined that somebody would try an ultra shortcut in real life. Because, yeah, we got Alex Lynn finally getting his first career win on the board, which I am very, very happy for. But the story of the race was our good friend, Mr. Mensa himself, Lucas Di Grassi. So what had happened was Lucas Di Grassi was given a drive-through penalty for not properly respecting safety car procedures. Audi were also fined $50,000, 90% of it suspended for not telling their driver about this penalty. All this while Audi principal Alan McNish went viral for running towards the Etzel Center to find race control. I gotta say, if there was ever one diminutive Scotsman who could challenge Usain Bolt in his prime, probably McNish in that moment.
An angry Alan McNish is a terrifying force.
As a result of ignoring this drive-through penalty that he was never told about, Lucas was black flagged and disqualified from the official result, making him the first ever driver to be black flagged in Formula E history. And I know Lucas is all about making firsts in Formula E, though this is probably not one of those firsts. I got a quote from our buddy Lucas, who said, "Everything we did today was clearly permitted by the rules of the championship. We could only do it if the safety car was at a lower speed than the pit lane speed limit. Otherwise, I would lose positions. It was a bold, risky move, but I'm fully behind my team when the decision was taken. The penalty was correctly applied because the vehicle, the wheels did reach zero, did not go full 0 kilometers per hour after the data was analyzed in detail, as it was so close. I was only informed of the penalty after the checkered flag via radio." And if you watch the race afterwards, you can see like the post-race shots, like Lucas gets out of the car and his team principals are just like whisking away, like, "Hey, buddy, we need to talk you out. You did not win that race. I'm sorry to break it to you," which only second most awkward post-race after Verline's
Why did you have to say it?
Because it's the most relevant point of reference that we have in the second half of the season. Folks, let's be honest. I'm going to kick it over to our guest, Stuart, first. What was your reaction to Lucas Di Grassi's ultra shortcut attempt as it happened in real time?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened, because I was standing next to my friend next to me who was helping me at the weekend, and I was like, why has my timing app got Di Grassi at the front? What does your timing app say? I think mine's broken. I think, and I still thought it was broken until it appeared on the TV, and Jack Nicholls was like, Lucas Di Grassi has come through the pit lane and is now in the lead. At which point, and I'm interested to see how much we differ on this, I was quite outraged. And because I didn't even know if, whether he attempted to stop at that point, all we knew is he'd gone through the pit lane, and we'd assumed that would be perfectly legal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it because he's, brain genius. But just, I can't imagine, and this is why I'm not a ruthless championship winning race driver, I can't imagine doing that and feeling fine about it. And
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear on this, because there were bits of race 2 that I checked out on, because admittedly I watched it, but I was dozing in and out during. Never wake up early in the morning. Mornings are overrated. But just to be clear, nothing was wrong with his car, and he wasn't going into the pits to serve a penalty at that point.
Yes, that was the case. Because I don't know because RJ wasn't here. I don't remember if Cam was here or not. Because
I was watching it. I was not in the Discord, but I was watching it on my TV.
A bunch of us were watching it on the podcast Discord server.
Which you can join! Patreon.com/motorsport101.
My sort of descent into madness started with Di Grassi pulls in the pit lane. I'm like, okay, maybe something is wrong with this car. He's still going, and he's going pretty fast. And then you can't really quite see it, because it seemed like he just did a drive-through at first, and I'm like, what's going on? And then he comes out the end of pit lane, which is something normally you don't see, because normally, say in North American racing series, where this is fairly common to do, if the safety car queue is passing pit lane exit, the exit's normally closed. Someone can't just go out. And not only does he go out, but he lines up right behind the safety car. And I'm like, this can't be legal, right? You can't be allowed to do this, right? And my general reaction was, well, if it's legal, fine, but this can't be legal, right? Just me repeating to myself, this can't be legal, right?
Watching this on TV, the first thing I thought was, this is fantastic content.
The
second thing I thought is, there's no way that's legal, and if it is, what is this series?
I don't know how long it actually took in real time, and it may have been extended in my mind just by sheer aghastedness, but it felt like officially nothing was said for ages. I think the race restarted, no one was under investigation, the commentators was like, okay, this is the order now. What?
I think the entirety of the sport was taken aback by Di Grassi's audacity to go do that.
It felt like race officiating themselves up in race control were literally going through the sport regulations.
No way he just did what he did. There's no way.
No way. And when they finally got around to it, it's like, okay, Di Grassi's under investigation for safety car procedure. We got him. And it ended up going down to a very small part of the regulation stating that if you go down pit lane, you do have to stop in your pit box. You just simply can't drive through. And on the world feed, it wasn't clear because
oh my god!
Because between the camera position they use for pit lane and Audi's pit stall, there was one of the support columns. So
we did not get clear footage of what actually happened until hours after the race had concluded.
Yeah. Which I jokingly posted on social media is an exact plot line the WWE famously used during the Royal Rumble like 20 years ago.
That's right. That was when The Rock did a head scissors takedown on the Big Show to win the Royal Rumble. That's how it's supposed to go, except his feet hit the ground, so then they had to turn that into a rematch, which then turned into a convoluted, fatal four-way main event that ultimately didn't matter because...
But the key point of that Royal Rumble plotline was that The Rock's feet hit the floor at the same time as the Big Show. Though the way the camera was angled, you couldn't actually see their feet hit the floor.
Yeah, because it's facing from the back.
Yeah, because they just assume that there's no way we'd actually be able to time this perfectly in real life, so let's just have the camera be obscured. Little did they know there was a second camera angle where it actually showed their feet hitting the floor at the same time.
Okay, bro, this is what I would do if I was booking Formula E.
Though, in Formula E's case, the second camera angle, which they released after the race, was conclusive. Di Grassi did not go to a complete stop.
Yeah, so one of those rolling stops. I've done those before.
His wheels stopped, however, he continues to slide in the pit box.
Yeah, that was the thing, because they hadn't Emery'd, they had put down the surface in his pit box. And it's quite slippery when it, other than that very explicit zone where the pit lane of the track is.
But
yeah.
Yes, and as the race continued, it became clear and clear after he was awarded the drive-through penalty, and seemingly Lucas Di Grassi was not going to serve that penalty. And the moment that penalty was awarded, seconds later, they cut to a second camera feed of Alan McNish running through the Excel Center looking for race control.
Now, I don't watch WWE, but that also seems very much like some shit that would go down there.
Alan McNish hasn't moved that fast since the last time he drove an LMP1.
Alan McNish is coming in with a Money in the Bank briefcase!
And it seemed clear to commentary and everyone at home that Audi had no intentions of serving that penalty because they knew that it wasn't going to get overturned if they served it. The only way that they could win this race is if they could convince race control that what they did was legal, and was not legal. And not only that, they avoided any possibility of Audi appealing this by awarding Lucas Di Grassi the black flag, which cannot be appealed.
So, before we get started, how responsible is Formula E for that gaping chasm of a loophole? Or did they just honestly think of the goodness of their heart, think, wow, nobody's going to try this?
You know, anytime you give a racing driver an inch and they'll take the whole damn country. There's no rule against it. Someone was gonna... I just don't think they had the imagination that someone that would have the audacity to try this one day.
Yeah, it's kind of like 98 British Grand Prix, most commonly cited example. Nobody thinks that Michael Schumacher is going to be shrewd enough to serve a drive-through penalty on the last lap, knowing that his pit box is right after the start-finish line. Until he did, it was just like, he can't keep getting away with this!
I've got that exact point as a note in my I wrote down.
It's good to be on the same wavelength. It's good to be part of a hive mind. It's great.
To this day, I still cannot believe they were like, there's nothing we could book him on.
That's why they made it so you have to serve the penalties before the last lap.
Yeah.
And I think formally we're put in the situation where it's like, it feels like the rule set was not designed for street circuits like this, where it's like, maybe it would be good to have a NASCAR, an IndyCar style rule book where we just could close pit lane exit, so Lucas would have had to stop at the end instead of having to find this other procedural reason to book him on.
Yeah.
Well, this was also triggered by the safety car going so slowly that this loophole was an exploitable option.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think they expected to do so well out of it that they did. I think it was a big thing that they missed. Because I think you set up the track and you work out, well, what is the pit lane delta? What is the pit lane delta under safety car, under full course yellow? And these kind of things flag up. When they rejigged Silverstone into the new layout with the new pit lane, they dropped the speed limit in the pit lane because of how much of a shortcut it was. I feel like it's something you spot and do something about.
Yeah, because under normal circumstances, safety car speed is faster than pit lane speed. So I could see why this loophole was never discovered, because you'd never assume the safety car would be going slower than pit lane speed. But also, you have to remember that when these rules were conceived, no one ever thought we'd be having a pit straight indoors, so...
Behind a mini.
Everybody just figured that Battersea Park would be such a booming success that we'd still be racing there after 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Reader, that is not what happened.
Though it does feel to a degree it does feel to a degree the FIA was very harsh on Audi for what they did.
I was about to talk about this, and, given that we're recording this on the 28th of July, tomorrow Red Bull is going to have a hearing about that clash between Verstappen and Hamilton.
Whatever could you mean?
But Audi seemed to, come down hard. They seem to come down hard on Audi for this. I know most of this monetary fine suspended.
Audi found a loophole in their rules, rubbed it in Effie's face in front of the whole world, and the FIA crashed their whole weight down upon Audi as a result for making, let's call it what it is. They made Formula E look like a clown show.
Yeah.
And the FIA felt like getting some revenge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of a slightly different mindset of 50 G's is a drop in the bucket for a multi-billion-dollar manufacturer, and if they really wanted to drop the weight on him, dock them teams championship points.
Yeah, because let's be real here.
If they dock them teams, what do they care?
They're
leaving anyway. They're leaving anyway, and that's a deterrent to anyone who wants to join.
Yeah, and it's let's be real here, 50,000 euros might be a lot for Formula E, but 50,000 euros ain't a lot for VW Group.
Yeah, fines, monetary fines for rich people who do crimes is just effectively a slap on the wrist. Although I don't think this was really a crime.
Look,
it's just
forget attack mode, forget fan boost, forget the driving standards that we may or may not talk about later in the show. This is basic running your championship properly shit.
Mm-hmm.
This could be excusable in Season 1 or Season 2. This is Season 7 of FIA Formula E. The stewarding standards and the rules have been shot full of holes this year. And when everything is fine, the rules work. Anytime there is regulatory pressure to come down on someone, we get a farce.
Yeah.
This is like third on the list of insane black eye races and events that we've had this year in this sport.
Yeah, between Valencia, Puebla, and now London, Monaco was so great, but just, God.
Monaco is like the one, otherwise it's been Monaco being potential race of the year candidate.
Yeah.
And a typical Formula E season. With 3, like, fuck-up era kart and IRL level events sprinkled in.
I was about to say, do we all remember Diriyah? Diriyah feels like it was literally 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I do not. I don't even know who. Oh, Sam Bird won, didn't he? That's about.
Yeah.
He won.
Yeah. And it undoes all of the things that are great about Formula E because there are great things. Fundamentally, the racing product on a good track is fantastic.
Yeah, that's why manufacturers want to commit and recommit to this series. That's why top-level drivers want to get paid like factory drivers to race here.
Yeah, because, like, in terms of the circuits they go to, like, any track they go to in South America, whether it be Punta del Este, Santiago, Buenos Aires, or back in Europe with Monaco or Tempelhof, those are great venues. Like, formerly put on spectacular races there with no issue. But when we want to, like, oh, we need to have a race in London, and, like, they think more about what would be an interesting location rather than a good racing venue, and it shows.
You're not doing your job. You're not doing your job if you're building a track over aesthetic rather than racing product.
There's interesting about this track because I'm doing a video on the sort of how it was all put together, and I spoke to the Ollie McCrudden, who is the he's like the cities and planning's director, but he also the race event director for London. They've been planning to come here since season 2. It was one of many ideas. They were sketching out season 2 in season, when Battersea was like, and Formula E was unconvinced because it was a bit too crazy for them. And they looked all over the place, including like St James's Park, Greenwich Park, and they just kept coming back to Excel. It just seemed to tick all their boxes, which
That's fair.
I mean, poses some interesting questions.
I think Excel Center still has some potential, but it's clear that, like, hey, they've got to change this layout in a way that, like, hey, it's possible that we can have less of this bullshit.
Yeah, because I feel like in terms of planning in Greater London and Formula E have two different ideals where like you talked about, when Formula E looks at venues for ideal racing, it's normally a city park because it's a decent expanse. The roads in city parks are wider than usually tight city streets, and you don't get a lot of 90-degree corners, which people naturally lean against in city street circuits, which is why, Tempelhof, while formerly being an airport, is currently a city park. Santiago, park. Punta del Este, beachfront. Where you go into the other locations, you get weirder scenarios where the cities don't have to close down public spaces to have these events happen. So New York's at a cruise port terminal. Again, London, the Excel Center, for those who don't know, is a convention center. So
I thought it was a car park. It's partially a car park.
You don't have to close down a public place, like a public green space, to have this event, which in terms of city planning is great. But in terms of putting on a good race, might not be the best idea.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stuart.
I was just going to say it's a tricky location because actually, I don't actually know what the Brooklyn track looks like when it's not a track. In my mind, it's just an expanse of concrete. But in terms of fitting a track around the convention center, like where attack mode is, there's a car park there.
Yeah.
And the car park is contained on all sides, and the track comes into the car park through one entrance and out the car park through the other entrance of the car park. And there's a limit there. And the double hairpin that's very clumsy and I'm assuming will get looked at, is in quite a small amount of space, and it's only there to increase the length of the track because the track's 1.5 miles long as it is. It's not particularly long. So they are a little bit hands tied behind their back with what they could do, which, you know, maybe you ask questions about why they finalised this area. But yeah, they're a little bit hamstrung by the space they have available.
Yes. And it's kind of talking about that double hairpin. We do have to talk about the incidents that occurred over the course of the racing weekend.
Oh boy, there were many of them.
We get to the bumper cars section.
Yes,
all right.
Where the notable events that we have listed out, where Oliver Rowland had dive bombs off Van Dorn for the lead, with Van Dorn calling it a quite amateur move. Andre Lauder had a coming together on the pit straight with Antonio Felix.
Coming together, is that what we're going to call it?
Nice use of passive voice.
As fair and neutral as possible.
King, that's the passive voice shit.
Here I am as a Porsche, as King Porsche simp. He wielded the grinding takedown from Burnout Paradise on Antonio Felix da Costa.
Oh, and then one of the more notable incidents in the double hairpin with Sam Bird getting hit. Sam Bird hitting not only the wall, but Norman Nato. And then Buemi and Rast, you know, with Buemi hitting Rast, and then Rast hitting the wall and coming back into Buemi.
This only one round after Buemi took Rast out and gave him a puncture in New York. There were driving standards. I wouldn't call them high, but there were driving standards at the London E-Prix.
You're broken.
I don't know. I can't find the words to describe the bumper cars, the Wreckfest, now available on PS5, that the Race 2 was. The driving standards were piss poor. The penalties given for said driving standards were inconsistent from incident to incident, from lap to lap. You know, a racing driver is going to keep doing dumb shit if you don't deter them. And they were not deterred at any stage by the stewarding, and they continued doing dumb shit.
I think Di Grassi got hammered harder for the safety car infringement than anybody involved in any of these incidents got.
Correct.
Yeah, which is, like, I'd understand if they tried to explain away the inconsistency if, say, it's fairly common in competitive sailing. Anytime they make a ruling, anytime race control makes a ruling in those events, it's fairly recent they introduced this, I think, within the past 3 years, where, the race official, race director would get on to the broadcast with the commentary team and explain why certain penalties were given and why it was that given severity. And I think it would put a lot of people at ease if that was possible. If you're being that inconsistent for consistency's sake, then
at least just have like how like a lot of these sportscasters, like these sports broadcasts now have like referees, former referees out here as rules experts to explain the decisions, even something like that.
Yeah, and that would probably improve things, and it would make the broadcast an even better product. I don't know how feasible that is, though I do think the incidents do come down to, well, I'd say track layout is an issue.
Yeah.
That double hairpin we laid eyes upon it when we saw the track layout, and we're like, this is going to be a choke point. People are going to try some desperate shit in these corners, and it is not going to work out. And it was the flashpoint all weekend.
Yeah. I always wanted to know what it would be like to see an online lobby tackle the first chicane at Monza, but in real life, and it's in the UK and not Italy. That's always what I wanted.
Yeah.
No, that needs to go for next season.
Yeah,
I don't care.
When they said, when Formula E said that they were going to amend the layout for this circuit, I'm like, oh, they're going to get rid of the double hairpin. Formula E was like,
actually, no.
No.
We are the Anakin Padme meme. We changed the circuit, but you changed the double hairpin, right? But you changed the double hairpin, right?
And it's not just a London issue. It happens at a number of other venues where tight confines equals tight racing, and tight racing equals probably a lot of contact.
Yeah.
Well, the bigger problem is, there's little to no punishment unless you actually just fucking dump someone in the series.
Right.
And you have a wide entry going into that turn relatively with a very tight corner. And then it opens back up for a switchback opportunity into another tight corner.
Oh, Lord.
How many people did we see successfully make moves there? I think Van Dorn did. But
I saw a great move from De Vries up the inside of Alex Lynn.
We had 2 or 3 good ones.
Unless you were taking this single file, there was very little chance that you were pulling off any moves unless you were just putting somebody into the adjacent wall. And I like racing that gives you a little bit of leeway for some contact. That's part of what I like about Formula E. You can rub a little, and the car's not going to break. That's fine. But I think we're past the point of just we don't want this to turn into British touring cars.
Which is what it looked like.
I'm waiting for British touring car Twitter to get up their mentions.
There was something. There was. I know they rub shoulders a lot.
Yeah.
Wherever you put them, but there was something about that double hairpin that was just if you got your nose upside, you were committed to chaos through the right and the left.
If you got alongside, the way the corners were laid out put you in a position where if you want to complete that move, you're going to have to use up the other guy's car.
Yeah, and there's, what they're like. They're not prepared to back out. But yeah, the kind of incidents we were seeing were much more car breakers at such a low speed than we're used to. I still don't know how they cleared Sandbird's car in the second race. It's we went to a replay and we came back and they were gone.
Yeah, he was gone. It's like this is something out of iRacing where it's did he just hit escape to leave the car?
Press spacebar to reset your car to the track.
Maybe that's what we need. That's what Formula E needs.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need a reset button, and we need the iRacing penalty system. Actually, no, we don't need that.
Yeah, we have a little time left, and we don't normally do this, but we do have a question from a supporter. And I think it's a fairly interesting question, where the question is, does the race have to be in London? There are other places in Britain. Are there any other places in Britain you'd like to see a British E-Prix? And personally, in my mind, it's against Formula E's brand.
That's just it. London is the city.
Yeah.
And FE wants to race in cities. Because we've got a half a dozen tracks that would be viable for FE.
But no, let's not talk about actual racing tracks. Let's talk about
cities.
Birmingham.
Birmingham is Birmingham was the hottest street race, the only street race in the United Kingdom for years and years and years. And you're thinking, are enough of those streets still around where you could potentially revive the Birmingham Super E-Prix?
But before all our British viewers and listeners get mad at us, let me apologize for Cam. London is not the only city in Britain. London is not the only city in Britain.
Oh, I know. But in terms of what FE wants to promote themselves as.
Yes.
It's like how they treat New York like they're the only city in the United States.
Yeah, which is interesting because they raced in Long Beach the first few years. And I would love to see these modern cars come back to the full Long Beach circuit. That would be awesome.
You're acting like Los Angeles isn't a big city, actually.
Yeah.
So we got one city on one side of the U.S., we got one city on the other, and that's it.
That small market, Los Angeles, California, with their plucky underdog sports teams that just scrape by with minimal budgets and star talent. Oh boy.
You're going to be physically ill.
London, I get why they want London to work out, because it clearly didn't work the last time they tried it. They tried to force a square peg into a tiny, tiny round hole. And you know what? Bless them for trying, but it didn't work out. At Self Center, I'd say give it a year, give it some track modification. But if this doesn't work out, eventually you got to pull the plug and realize, London ain't the only glamorous city within the United Kingdom you got. Glasgow and Edinburgh, they're there. They're there somewhere. Manchester, it's there. Birmingham, it's there.
I'd like to apologize to
Liverpool
Scotland.
is there.
You're issuing a lot of apologies on today's podcast.
I'm just saying there are more options. I think we all agree that there are more options.
I will say, as someone from the UK and as a Londoner my whole life, apart from university, there are other cities. And the rest of the UK is very much like, please, there are other cities. The UK seems to put all of its eggs in the London basket, be it infrastructure, money, hosting things. Birmingham would be, not only would Birmingham be great, it actually it has the streets for it without having to put it into some corner away from everything else. We could even go to Belfast. People forget that Northern Ireland is also part of the UK. That could be fun. I agree. There are plenty of other places, and we don't have to sell a British event short by not putting it in London.
The problem is convincing Formula E to go do that.
Is it out of line to suggest that a Belfast E-Prix would only be good if it was a 26-minute race plus 6 additional minutes?
Oh.
I now want to fight RJ O'Connell.
But on that note...
That's the note.
Back to the studio.
The next time we'll see the
you know what? I just thought of a great idea. You want chaos? Run it at the old Top Gear test track with the figure 8. If you get hit in the crossover, too bad.
Oh, people would pack Dunsford Airfield for that. Because it's just it's a Top Gear track.
On that note, the next time we'll see Formula E will be on the weekend of the 14th and 15th of August for the season finale at Tempelhof Airport. Any quick predictions on who you think is going to win this championship?
I feel confident that a driver representing a Formula E team will win the World Championship in Berlin. That is how confident I feel.
I may be wrong. I'm gonna be wrong, but I'm not gonna deviate from my pick at the start of this season. With everyone still in the fight, I think Rene could still somehow pull it off.
Yeah, he's only 23 points back.
Yes, so mathematically, to still be in the running for the championship, you just need to be checks notes within roughly 56 places, 56 points of the leader, which is pretty much the entire field. So
sorry, Joel Eriksson.
Yes, sorry, Joel Eriksson. You showed up a bit too late to win the championship this year?
I will say Nick DeFries, the only one of the top 5 who hasn't been out of the top 10 in the standings at some point. Somehow. Even though he's going into Tempelhof in Group 1.
That's the problem.
He's timed it
too
terribly.
well placed.
And yeah, based on my prediction at the start of the year, I'm gonna stick with that. Based on how he ran here last year, based on the fact he's not in Group 1, for this race, and potentially the second race, even if he wins. One, Rene Rast is in great position to win this championship, despite being in 10th place in the standings.
F1 2010 ain't got shit on this.
Gun to head. You put me under pressure to make a pick right now. I'm going to be bold, brazen enough to pick somebody that does have to start the weekend in Group 1. I'm going to be bold and brazen enough to think that Robin Friends is going to win this championship.
Okay.
But I could be very, very, very wrong. Very, very wrong by the end of this.
Harley Davidson live wire racing legend. Robin Friends.
Just entertain me. Don't be too much of a shit show, but enough of a shit show to where we still have like an interesting race to talk about. You know, that's where I want Formula E to be.
Be memorable.
I want Formula E to be as competitive every week as IndyCar. I want there to be the feeling that anybody can win on any given weekend. I think we all want that. And I think that's what the group qualifying format's trying to accomplish. I think it is time to just have a look at the way things are done. And that's fine. For any young series, those growing pains are going to happen. I know it's season 7, but, you know.
F1 said like season 72.
They're a well-oiled machine. Nothing ever goes wrong.
How many seasons is WEC on? How many times it died so far?
No idea. But yes, that'll be the show. And again, if you like the show, you can subscribe. You can leave a like on this video. You can follow us all on our social medias, which would be listed, on screen right now. And as well, you could follow the show at motorsport_101 and at motorsport101.com. And you could also back us on Patreon, where you could listen in live and submit questions live, like the other British E-Prix question. And again, anything you want to plug, Stuart, while you're here?
I have a YouTube channel called CHAINBEAR on, I think, just search for CHAINBEAR.
Yep.
It'll come up.
It will probably be the first hit.
If you type in CHAINBEAR, you'd hope. Or I've done some terrible SEO. I do explainy things about mostly Formula 1, but this week Formula E.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see your video about this race.
Thank you for coming by.
Neither can I, to be honest. The editing.
And yeah, for all of us here, I hope to see you next week. And bye. Actually, since Ray's not here, might as well say it. Sayonara.
Arrivederci, y'all.
Arrivederci.
Did you just say Saranara? Is that a new kind of pasta?
Yeah, that's what I get at the Olive Garden, where I eat with my family.